Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 Word and to the first of my end of season team ramblings is probably the best way to put it. These won't be like season reviews or anything like that, just a short video for each team with a few of my thoughts on how I think they've got on and their drivers have got on in 2019. It is after all an opinions channel, but anyway, let's jump straight into it starting with Williams. Now, I don't think it's unfair to say that they've had a thoroughly miserable season in 2019. In fact, some might say that's an understatement. They've spent much of the year trundling around at the back of the field and picked up just 1 point all year. It wasn't really a huge surprise though to see them struggle so much given that their woes really started pre-season when they arrived late for testing in Barcelona, and of course reports of unrest within the team began to surface on the run-up to Australia. In fact, as I'm sure you'll remember, Paddy Lowe was out of the door before the season even got going. I can't imagine though that they honestly expected things to be as bad as they have been. At the end of qualifying at Albert Park, they were a whopping 4 seconds off the pace of Mercedes, nearly 6 seconds in the case of Kubica, and Russell was 1.3 seconds off the closest driver to them, and that was Carlos Sainz. And I seem to recall, I might be wrong, but I seem to remember Carlos Sainz had his issues in that session. So really not a good start at all. It took a few races, but things did begin to improve, although, let's be honest, it couldn't really have gotten any worse. But come the end of the season and after quali in Abu Dhabi, Russell was only 4 tenths off Kimi Raikkonen, and to be fair, their race pace improved slowly through the season as well. Still not good at all, but there was definite progress. Despite the doom and gloom though, there were some positives for them, not many but some. Robert Kubica, of course, picking up that 1 point in Germany after the Alfa Romeos were slapped with a very hefty penalty. George Russell was mere hundredths of a second away from making it out of Q1 in Hungary, so close. And he wasn't far away from the points in Brazil thanks to all of that chaos towards the end of the race. And there is absolutely no denying that the gap has closed between them and teams like Alfa Romeo and Haas, who they have been fighting with at times in the latter stages of this season. And you know what? No, the pace wasn't there this season really, but the one thing they did have was reliability. They went on a run of 14 straight double finishes, their first retirement not coming until Singapore. Look, I know these aren't thrilling achievements if you can even call them achievements, but given the miserable year they had, things like that are like mini victories to the team. As I've already said a couple of times, there has been improvement this year, but it still looks and feels like Williams are a long way off challenging in that midfield again. However, with the regulations staying static for next season, and if they can continue to evolve this year's car and maybe build on that for 2020, continue that improvement we have seen, they may well close up even more. I can't lie though, if I were them, I would probably already be working towards 2021. I'm not saying write off next year completely, but I think those regulation changes are their best opportunity to make their way up the grid. So I would definitely be focusing more on that. As for the drivers, George Russell has been really impressive this year. I mean, it is very hard to really gauge how he's been because his only measure has been his teammate because they have been so far off the pace. So we're really only looking at the inter-team battle. But it must be said, for a first season in F1, I think he's been extremely strong. He whitewashed Kubica in quali, winning 21-0, and in the races they both finished, he won that battle 16-2. There is just nothing else to say on them stats other than he was comfortably the better of the two drivers. If he did have any regrets though about his rookie year, perhaps it will be the mistake he made in Germany that allowed Kubica to pass him and ultimately be in the position to pick up that point when the luck came their way. But honestly, and I'm taking nothing away from Kubica when I say this, that point was pretty irrelevant really, given that they still finished 27 behind Haas. And what I mean by that is it's not like it made the team a few million quid by moving them up the table a little bit. And at the end of the day as well, Russell, he's got his whole career ahead of him, and I'm certain he will pick up more than a handful of points in the years to come. Off track, Russell has shown great maturity this year and does not look out of place at all in Formula 1. In fact, his maturity was a real surprise to me this year. He's also shown that he is very much the leader of that team in terms of the drivers and has continued to show his potential despite driving a pretty terrible car. Despite his inexperience and some of the, let's face it, down moments for the team this year, he's shown that he can go into a team, grab it by the scruff of the neck and lead it. That is an impressive trait for somebody that is, again, so inexperienced. There has been a lot of hype around Lando Norris this season, and rightly so, but Russell has been quietly getting on with it, learning his trade, and although I know he's still young and he's got a very long way to go, I think he's shown that he's got the potential to be a future champion. Again, it's very hard to judge at this stage, but there is no denying that all things considered, he has been impressive in 2019 and he's got a lot of potential, and I can see him driving a Mercedes very soon. As for his teammate, well, it was a fairy tale story when he was announced as a race driver for Williams a year ago, but it's been far from the dream season for the pole. As I've already said, he was comprehensively beaten by his rookie teammate, and he struggled massively at times over the year. But although it didn't make any difference in terms of championship position and prize money, he did pick up the team's only point in Germany, and I think that was undeniably the highlight of his 2019, but there has been little else to get particularly excited about. The thing is though, it probably shouldn't be a surprise that he struggled. We kind of touched on this at the start of the season. He has been away from F1 for so long, and the sport has evolved massively in that time. So we were never going to see that 2008, 2009, 2010 form in 2019. And you know, although it has been played down at times, I can't believe that there won't have been some limitations there due to the injuries he sustained in 2011. But the fact of the matter is, as I've said so many times this year, to get back into an F1 car at all is incredible, and the fact he managed to go racing as well is even more of a phenomenal achievement. I said this over the weekend in a live stream. I will personally always prefer to remember Kubica for his first stint in Formula 1. You know, the potential future world champion that he was seen as. But despite that, and despite how disappointing this year has been, there is part of me that is still really glad he returned. No, it wasn't a great season. In fact, some might say it wasn't even a good season. But the fact that he made it back to racing the series will have opened so many doors to many other drivers, and he will be an inspiration to those who perhaps thought that they would never get their opportunity in Formula 1. It may be a bit of a cliche line, but he's broken down some barriers. Perhaps we will see him again one day in a development role, but I doubt we will see him racing in F1 again. But he is a racer, and I have no doubt whatsoever that next season he will find himself a place on a grid somewhere. It is also worth the mention, by the way, that I think he will be a big loss to Williams over the winter. Despite being away for so long, he still brings a hell of a lot of experience and some important knowledge, and there is no doubt that he will have had a lot of input behind the scenes over the course of the last year or so at that team. And with George Russell only going into his second season and Latifi coming into his first season, I think Williams are going to miss that. In the end though, it was always going to be tough for both drivers given just how dreadful that car was, but I think both drivers can take their own positives from 2019, and the team have definitely shown some improvement too, so perhaps they can feel a little bit more confident going into next season. I've got to say though, surely they've got to make progress because at times this season they've been rock bottom, and so really the only way is up. My god, that was cheesy. But anyway, that is it for this video. But don't forget that you can let me know your thoughts on Williams this season down in the comment section. And also let me know as well how you feel both of their drivers have got on in 2019. Now, I will be back soon with more content as ever. But in the meantime, don't forget that you can of course follow me over on social media. And all of the links you need for that are in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.